Let me ask you something. Why do you keep falling for the same person? Why does someone who looks perfect on paper leave you feeling nothing? Well, one specific person who's probably not good for you feels magnetic. Most people explain this with psychology, attachment styles, or personal history, but there's a quieter truth underneath all of that. Attraction is, well, it's not random. And it isn't just emotional either. A lot of it is actually biological. And once you see it, your entire dating history starts to make sense. Here's the quiet truth that no one really talks about. Your brain chemistry plays a huge role in who you're drawn to. Not just looks, not just personality, not just vibes. Biological anthropologist Dr. Helen Fisher spent decades studying romantic love, taking the brain scans of thousands of people in love, looking at them, looking at why people love and their love patterns and their attraction patterns across millions of individuals worldwide. Her attraction style questionnaire was even used by Match.com very later on in her career, and it helped people understand real-world compatibility. And what Dr. Helen Fisher found is surprisingly simple. Most people lean towards one primary attraction style, driven by different neurochemical systems in their brains. This doesn't mean you're boxed in, it doesn't mean that you're doomed, to one specific type. As a matter of fact, people will often have a primary and then a secondary. It simply means that your body has a default way of experiencing attraction. And that default quietly shapes who feels exciting, who feels boring, and who feels impossible to forget. There are 4 primary attraction styles. And as you listen, don't overthink this. Just notice in your body, get a felt sense of what feels familiar. Most people recognize themselves immediately. So attraction style number 1, the explorer, the dopamine-driven people. Explorers are wired for novelty, for newness. They're curious, spontaneous, energetic. They love new ideas and doing new things, new places, new experiences. In relationships, attraction feels to them like excitement, momentum, constantly moving, constantly doing the new thing, possibility. They often are drawn to other explorers because they need their dopamine hit. They need their dopamine rush from their mate. People who match their enthusiasm, their need to constantly be doing something and doing something new and trying something new and exploring. The shadow side of this is that when stimulation fades, they can mistake that for loss of attraction. So for explorers, chemistry feels like movement. Our second attraction style type is the builder. Our serotonin-loving, driven beings. Builders are wired for stability. They value consistency, loyalty, and shared values. They're grounded. They're very grounded. They are the dependable types. They are long-term oriented. They look for commitment. They like commitment. They want it. Attraction for builders grows slowly. It's built on trust and reliability. Builders are they're usually drawn to other builders, to a high dopamine type. Builders can feel like our explorers. To an explorer, a builder can feel boring, right? Because they want that novelty, they want that new. To a builder, constantly changing and doing and all, and this and that and the other, that doesn't feel very stable or reliable. The builders, that steadiness feels meaningful for them. So for builders, chemistry feels like settling in. Action style number 3, the director, testosterone driven. And remember, this is any-gender. Directors are wired for focus and decisiveness. They're analytical, confident, goal-oriented, often less emotionally expressive, but very clear. They're clear-cut, direct. Directors are typically drawn to negotiators, people who bring emotional intelligence, nuance and subtlety and connectivity. This opposing, attract pairing can be very, very powerful because they help balance each other out. It's this typical opposites attract, and it works in a very beautiful way in this case. For directors, attraction often shows up as respect. To a director, chemistry feels like alignment. Fourth attraction style is the negotiator. They are estrogen-driven, oxytocin-driven. Negotiators are wired for connection. They're intuitives, they're the empaths, they're emotionally perceptive. They care deeply about intimacy, both physical and emotional. And negotiators are often drawn to directors, right? Here's another opposites attract kind of situation that works really well. They want a director, somebody who's grounded, decisive, steady. This is where that, the balance can come in. That polarity can feel intense and compelling. For negotiators, chemistry feels like depth, deep emotion, diving into the watery depths and going deep. They're not afraid to be vulnerable. And when they have that opposite, they can bring that vulnerability and that emotion and that depth of intimacy into the relationship. Now, this is where it gets nuanced. Just because someone activates your attraction system doesn't mean they're right for you. Your brain is designed to recognize familiar chemistry patterns, right? So if, for example, a certain dynamic was present in your early life, your childhood, by a parent perhaps, they had that emotional tone, or maybe an early relationship that you were in shaped what closeness felt like to you. Your system can register that pattern, as known, feeling comfortable, feeling familiar, even if it wasn't emotionally safe or satisfying. That's why attraction can pull you towards the same kind of person over and over again. It's that whole, that's the whole cliche of why am I dating the same person over and over again? Why am I always drawn to the same kind of people over and over again? Well, it's not because, you're choosing wrong on purpose, but because your brain is saying, oh, I know how to orient here. Even if it was a unsafe or a not good feeling orientation that was integrated into your nervous system in childhood, in early relationship, a young relationship, that's what the brain and your nervous system learn to do. That pull doesn't automatically mean love. It means recognition. This is the difference between attraction, chemistry that supports connection and regulation, and activation, chemistry that's mirroring a familiar pattern and keeps your nervous system on alert. So someone can feel very intoxicating. Someone can feel very intoxicating because they hit your chemistry, right? They're hitting that inside of you while also leaving you anxious, uncertain, or self-abandoning. And none of this means anything is wrong with you. It just means that, your system learned something earlier on in your life, and it hasn't been updated, upgraded. The new download, the 2.0 version, hasn't been integrated yet. So just take a moment and ask yourself, does this attraction feel familiar because it's healthy? I have peace of mind? Or because it's something that my system learned early on? And you don't have to answer that right now. Just simply notice. Notice what comes up. Here's the hidden gem that's also a bit of an uncomfortable part. If your attraction style has been shaped by intensity, by the nervous system being dysregulated, then calm can feel wrong. A steady builder might feel flat. An emotionally available director might feel overwhelming. Another negotiator might feel like too much. But calm doesn't mean that there's no attraction, there's no passion, there's no desire. It just means your nervous system isn't on high alert. If you're used to activation in connection with attraction, safety can feel unfamiliar before it feels good, before you can settle into it, before you can surrender to it. Mature attraction, real attraction, doesn't hijack you on day one. It doesn't grab you by the nervous system, by the tail of your nervous system. It meets you where you are. It grows. That's not a flaw. That's a feature. So, what do you do with this? Well, first, just get curious about your primary type in a very playful way. No overanalyzing. Second, look at your patterns. Just have an honest look at who you are consistently drawn to in a very forgiving and self-loving way, just out of self-awareness. Third, notice the difference between attraction and activation in your body. Just simply ask yourself, does this feel exciting, passionate, and regulating, or exciting and overwhelming and destabilizing? You don't have to fight your biology, but you can choose healthier expressions of it. The goal isn't to change who you're attracted to. It's to understand why, so that you have choice. Self-awareness changes everything. Attraction doesn't have to be completely about destiny. It can be simply about understanding your chemistry, your brain patterns, and it can simply be information. And when this divine intelligence is mixed with the magic of you tuning into how you really feel about someone and letting things flow and letting things be synchronistic, and you have this balance of understanding your patterning, understanding who you really are, getting clear about who you are, what you want, what you need, what you are really attracted to, and what genuinely feels like attraction that's safe and happy and intimate on an emotional and physical level, and you can feel that in the body, and it feels very calm and uplifting, and someone is getting that from you. Well, then that's the best of both worlds. Thank you so much for joining me and hanging out with me today. I'm Kristen. Welcome to this channel. I am also doing lives. I call them Holding Calm Space. And usually I recap one of my videos for a few minutes, waiting for people to join in. And next week there'll be a live just recapping a little bit of the 4 types, just because it is a lot to take in, and I wanted to have a companion piece where it's not just intellectual and you trying to figure it out. It's an integrated way to bring it into the body. So in that space, there's journaling prompts, there's people talking in community, and there's music in the background, and I answer questions, and it's just a really calming time. Usually the calm spaces kind of start out as a companion piece, but what I've noticed with my lives is that kind of like after a little bit, it's just us chilling, being in community, supporting each other, just holding a group container where people can have a little bit of a nervous system reset, a somatic experience of just having a moment in your day to relax. And you're not alone, you're in community, but you could be going about doing your work, doing your stuff, going through whatever you're going through, and we're all there too. A lot of times I end up just reading different kinds of poetry, and people shout out what they want to hear, and I'll read some, Knit Hot Tong, or I'll read Rumi, or David White, or Marianne Williamson, or Esther Perel, and we'll just kind of then have a chat about it. And it's meant to be that kind of space that can be in flow. Anyway, I hope that you will join me there. Please hit subscribe and the notification bell so that you always know when that's happening. If you're curious, you just want to see what it's about, hop in and check it out. Otherwise, I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.